Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It all began one Friday morning when Merlin was getting ready for a weekend trip to Las Vegas. Her best friend Emma was about to get married, for the second time. Yes, you read that right, the second time. Emma's first marriage had ended badly, all because she couldn't resist the temptation of another man. I had always harbored suspicions about Emma, but Merlin, ever loyal, defended her without hesitation. "She's changed," Merlin insisted, carefully folding a sleek black dress into her suitcase. "She's ready to settle down this time." I shot her a skeptical look. "Vegas for the bachelorette party? Really?" Merlin sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Andrew, please, don't start. It's just for 2 days and I'll be with the girls the whole time." She kissed me goodbye and promised to call each night. Though I wasn't thrilled about it, I trusted her, or I thought I did. On Saturday night, I was lounging on the couch watching TV when my phone vibrated. It was my cousin Matt calling. He was in Vegas that weekend, celebrating a promotion with friends. "Hey man," he said, sounding uneasy. "I'm not sure how to say this, but I think I saw Merlin at a club." My frown deepened. "Yeah, she's there for Emma's bachelorette party." "Are you sure? Because she's not just with the girls," Matt replied, his voice cautious. "She's with a guy, and they're pretty close." My stomach dropped. "Close? What do you mean by that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Dancing? Hugging?" "It doesn't look innocent," Matt answered. I could feel my head start to spin. "Are you sure it's her?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yeah, I'm sure," Matt confirmed. "Do you want me to intervene? Let her know I'm here?" I paused, my heart pounding. If Matt stepped in now, Merlin would know someone was watching her. She might stop, but it wouldn't change the fact that she had crossed a line. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. "No," I said firmly. "Don't confront her. Just keep an eye on her." An hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was Matt. I braced myself, already dreading what he was about to say. "She kissed him, Andrew," Matt said, his voice tight. "I have a photo." For a moment I couldn't breathe. It felt as if the air had vanished from the room. My throat went dry and my heart hammered against my ribs. "Send it," I whispered, barely able to speak. Seconds later, the message arrived. My hand trembled as I opened it. And then everything seemed to tilt. There she was, Merlin, my wife of 12 years. Her arms wrapped around another man in a dimly lit club. His hands were on her waist, their lips locked in a kiss that was anything but casual. I stared at the photo for what felt like an eternity. The image seared into my mind, her flushed face, her fingers resting on his shoulders, the unmistakable intimacy between them. It was real, and there was no denying it. "They're leaving the club now," Matt said. "Should I follow them?" Without hesitation, I said, "Yes. Don't lose track of them. Let me know where they go." The next 30 minutes felt like an eternity. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone, waiting for Matt's updates. Each second dragged on, feeling endless. I imagined Merlin walking out of that club, laughing with this man, hand in hand, strolling down the bright, flashing streets of Vegas. Finally, my phone rang again. It was Matt, his voice strained. "They're heading to a hotel," he said. "I'm following them now. They're not even trying to hide it." "He's got his arm around her," Matt added. My stomach churned, and I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the thought. "Which hotel?" I asked, my voice tight. When Matt named the hotel, I recognized it instantly. It was Merlin's hotel. "They're at the elevator now," Matt said, his voice tense. "It's just the two of them. No one else around." I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and my thoughts spiraled. This was the confirmation I had been dreading. "I don't think they're coming back down tonight," Matt said softly. I was paralyzed, unable to speak. I just sat there, numb. "Thanks, Matt," I said quietly. "I'll take it from here." "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. "No," I replied, my voice raw, "but I'll figure it out." When we hung up, I remained motionless, staring at the photo on my phone. The truth was right in front of me, undeniable. Merlin had crossed a line at the club, and now she was in a hotel room with another man, about to cross yet another irreversible boundary. I considered calling her, demanding an explanation, but what good would that do? She'd deny everything, twist the truth. I knew I had to confront her face to face. Only then would I get the real answers. I had to see it with my own eyes, even if it destroyed me in the process. My heart was in pieces, my hands shaking as I booked the earliest flight to Vegas. That night, sleep was a stranger. My thoughts raced, the image of the photo Matt sent and his messages replaying in my mind. Each time I shut my eyes, I saw Merlin in that club, her lips pressed against another man's. By morning, I was at the airport, sitting rigidly in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs by the gate. The flight to Vegas felt like it lasted forever. My stomach churned, a disgusting mix of anger, betrayal, and unease twisting inside me. I couldn't stop staring at the photo on my phone, trying to make sense of how things had gotten this far. How could the woman I loved, the woman I thought loved me, do this to us? When I landed, Matt was waiting near baggage claim. He looked as drained as I felt, his usual confident demeanor replaced by an unfamiliar seriousness. "You okay?" he asked, giving my shoulder a quick, sympathetic pat. "No," I answered flatly, "but I'm here." "You sure about this?" he asked, studying me intently. "It's going to be messy, Andrew," I said, my jaw clenched tight, "but I need more proof." After several hours of staying in the background, Matt and I tracked Merlin and her friends to a rooftop bar with a stunning view of the Vegas Strip. It was the kind of place she loved, dimly lit, loud music, overpriced drinks. I stayed near the entrance, blending into the shadows, while Matt moved closer to keep an eye on them. "She's with Emma and the others," Matt whispered through the phone. "They're sitting by the edge of the patio." I edged closer, trying to stay hidden. From where I stood, I could see her clearly, Merlin, my wife, laughing as though she had no cares in the world. She looked flawless, her hair perfectly styled, the dress she wore hugging her body in all the right places. It was the same dress she had packed earlier that morning before she left for this trip, the one she had claimed was just for fun. A wave of betrayal crashed over me. That dress wasn't for me, it was for him. And then, there he was. I recognized him instantly, the man from the photo, tall, broad-shouldered, with a confident grin and an arrogant swagger. But he wasn't alone. Another man stood beside him, likely his friend. My blood began to boil as I watched Merlin's face light up when she saw him. She stood up, adjusted her dress, and wrapped her arms around his neck as he leaned in. "She's all over him," Matt murmured through the phone. "I can't believe it." Neither could I. I stood frozen, my fists clenched tight. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to confront them, to demand the truth, to tear into this guy. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't talk her way out of. The minutes dragged by as I watched them. The rest of the group faded into the background, and all I could focus on was Merlin and the man, laughing, touching, leaning closer. Then it happened. He leaned in and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, and their lips met in a slow, intentional kiss. I snapped a photo, my hands trembling with rage. But when I looked at the image on my phone, I knew it wasn't enough. A kiss could be explained away, twisted into something innocent. I needed more. Matt's voice crackled through the phone again, tight with tension. "You get that?" he asked. "I got it," I replied, my teeth grinding. "But we're not done. Let's see where this goes." After a while, the group finished their drinks and began to leave. Merlin walked out with the man by her side, while his friend chatted closely with Emma. The other women from the bachelorette party split off, laughing and heading further down the strip, clearly planning to continue the night. Matt and I followed from a distance, staying out of sight as Merlin and Emma walked hand in hand with the two men toward her hotel. My heart raced with every step, the crushing weight of what I was about to discover pressing down on me. When they reached the hotel entrance, Merlin briefly looked around, scanning for anyone who might be watching. Then, She and Emma led the two men inside. Matt and I slipped into the lobby just in time to see them step into the elevator together, the four of them, disappearing behind the sliding doors. My heart shattered. "What's the plan, Andrew?" Matt asked. Without hesitation, I answered, "We're ending this. I'm not leaving without the truth." Inside the lobby, I walked up to the front desk, my phone gripped tightly in my hand. I hadn't rehearsed anything. I just knew I had to act. The receptionist, a young man in his 20s, greeted me with a polite smile. "How can I help you, sir?" I pulled up a photo from my wedding day. In it, Merlin and I were smiling, our arms wrapped around each other, full of hope for the future. I showed it to the receptionist. "That's my wife," I said, my voice steady but cold. "She's been staying here for the weekend. I need to get into her room." The receptionist hesitated, his smile faltering as he looked at me with uncertainty. "I'm sorry, sir," he began, his voice unsure. "We have strict privacy rules for our guests." I interrupted him, my tone firm. "I understand your policy, but my wife is upstairs, and she's betraying me right now. I need to see it for myself." I leaned in closer, speaking softly. "This isn't just a feeling. I have evidence." I showed him the photo Matt had taken of Merlin kissing another man, my hand slightly shaking as I held it out. The receptionist glanced at the photo, his eyes widening. He seemed torn between adhering to his professional duties and showing compassion. "Please," I urged, my voice cracking with desperation. "I just need to know the truth. I'm not asking for anything more." He let out a long breath, clearly conflicted, before nodding slowly. "All right," he said, barely above a whisper. "But please, keep this discreet." He handed me a keycard, his fingers brushing mine for a brief moment. "Room 821, he added quietly. "Thank you," I responded, my voice thick with a mixture of dread and reluctant gratitude. The elevator ride to the 8th floor felt endless, my heart pounding in my chest, each beat seeming to echo in my ears. Matt had stayed in the lobby, ready to step in if things took a turn, but this was something I needed to face alone. As I stood before the door to room 821, I hesitated, my hand trembling as I held the key card. I pulled out my phone, started recording, and swiped the card through the reader. The green light blinked on, and the door creaked open. What I saw inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. Merlin was in bed with the man, his shirt discarded on the floor, and hers was nowhere to be seen. They froze at the sight of me, their faces twisted in shock and guilt. But there was more. On the opposite side of the bed, Emma was tangled with the man's friend. The laughter that had filled the room moments ago vanished as she turned to face me, her expression full of panic. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice quivering with emotion yet cutting through the stillness. "Someone explain!" Merlin scrambled to cover herself, clutching the sheets tightly around her chest. "Andrew, wait!" she cried, panic evident in her voice. "It's not what it looks like." I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Not what it looks like?" I scoffed. "You're literally in bed with him, Merlin." I pointed at the man, who couldn't even meet my gaze as he hastily pulled on his shirt. Tears welled in Merlin's eyes, but I felt no sympathy for her. She had made her choice. Emma, ever the opportunist, tried to intervene. "Andrew, calm down," she said, wrapping herself in a robe. My anger turned to her instantly. "Don't even start, Emma," I snapped. "You're just as bad. Cheating on your fiancé days before the wedding? You think I'll let him marry you without knowing what you've done?" Her face drained of color and she stammered, "It's not like that. It was a mistake." I spun back to Merlin, my voice sharp with accusation. "A mistake? No. Emma may try to pretend her mess was a mistake, but you, Merlin, you brought him here. You invited them here. This wasn't some accidental slip-up. This was planned, and you've been lying to my face all weekend." Merlin began sobbing, her cries grating against my nerves. "Andrew, please," she begged. "It didn't mean anything." "I was drunk," she said, trying to explain herself. "Drunk?" I interrupted, my disgust palpable. "Don't insult me, Merlin. I've been watching you all weekend. You weren't drunk when you kissed him at the club. You weren't drunk when you brought him back to your room last night. This isn't a mistake. It's a pattern." She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised my hand to silence her. "Don't," I said, my voice cold. "I don't want to hear it. You've said enough." I stopped recording and shoved my phone into my pocket, my chest heaving with emotion. I stormed out of the room, the full weight of what I had just seen sinking into me. Matt was waiting in the lobby, his face somber. "Well?" he asked, his concern evident. "It's over," I replied, my voice flat and emotionless. "I've seen enough." The next morning, I called my lawyer to start the divorce proceedings. I didn't hesitate. I couldn't stay in this marriage any longer. Later, I met Merlin in the hotel lobby, knowing this would be our final confrontation. She looked as if she hadn't slept, her eyes swollen and red from crying. When she saw me, her face softened, and she hurried toward me, as though a few words could fix everything. "Andrew, please," she begged. "It was a mistake. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything." "I love you," she said, her voice trembling, her face streaked with tears. I stood there, numb, the reality of everything crashing down on me. The woman I had trusted, the one I believed was my life partner, had shattered that trust beyond repair. "It was important enough for you to deceive me," I shot back, my voice as cold as stone. "It mattered enough for you to ruin everything we had built together." Her face twisted with desperation. "I never wanted it to get this far," she whispered. "It was only meant to be one night." "One night?" I interrupted, the disbelief thick in my tone. "You honestly think sleeping with someone else for a single night means nothing? And it wasn't just one night. It was two. How many times, Merlin? How many lies have we been living?" I demanded, my anger boiling over. "I'm done with you." She collapsed in on herself, sobbing quietly, her hands covering her face, but I stood firm, unmoved. The truth was inescapable. The woman I thought I knew no longer existed. Before I left Vegas, I made sure to send the video to Emma's fiancé. No matter how painful it would be for him, he deserved to know the truth. About an hour later, he called me. His voice trembled. "Thank you for telling me, Andrew," he said, his words shaky and broken. "I don't know what to say, but thank you. The wedding's off." I didn't say much in response. I wasn't looking for thanks or validation. I wasn't trying to feel better about myself. I just needed to make sure Emma faced the consequences of what she'd done. As I boarded the plane home, the weight of the past few days hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My marriage was over. The woman I thought I loved had betrayed me. But amid the pain, there was an unexpected feeling of relief. It wasn't the kind of relief I had expected, but it was there, undeniable. I deserved more than this. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie to me, someone who wouldn't shatter my trust. The days that followed were filled with endless paperwork, lawyers, and the overwhelming finality of it all. A week later, Merlin packed up her things. She did it silently, like she had no reason to stay. When the last of her bags were gone, it felt like the final chapter of my life had closed. The silence in the house was overwhelming, but oddly serene. I haven't spoken to her since, nor do I plan to. I've come to understand that some mistakes are simply too deep to forgive. Perhaps she felt remorse for what she had done, but regret doesn't heal the wounds. She made her decisions, and now I had to live with mine. For the first time in a long while, it felt like I was starting fresh, alone, but liberated. In the months that followed, I focused on myself. I threw myself into my work, rediscovered hobbies I'd long forgotten, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Slowly but surely, I started rebuilding my life from the wreckage she left behind. I wasn't looking for another relationship at that point, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't settle for anything less than someone who truly valued me, someone who understood that trust must be earned, not freely given. As for Merlin, I have no idea where she is now, what she's doing, or if she's learned anything from this. But that's no longer my concern. The only person I need to worry about now is myself. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some betrayals go too deep. In the end, I came to realize that walking away was the only option left. I had given everything, but she destroyed what we had, and that was something I couldn't repair. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.